Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Good day, class. So today we are going to continue with our class, which is Introduction to Computer Repairs. Today we are going to, under Module 2, we are going to see tools and equipment for PC repairs. So let's open this file. So tools and equipment for computer repairs. So these are the tools that we need, or that at least an engineer or who wants to be an engineer at least to have some, but not all. But if you have money, you can be able to purchase all the equipment. If you don't have money, you can purchase some. You can have some so that you can be able to start repairing computer. So the first thing that I'm going to explain here is the hot air workstation. Hot air workstation. This is the hot air workstation here. This is the hot air workstation. So this component has two things that you can use. This is called a hot air gun because this one produces hot air. Is the one that you use or that you can use to remove IC or to put on IC on a computer motherboard. So it has these plugs that we are going to plug in, or adapters, which is of different sizes. This mouth is where the hot air used to come out in order to remove your IC. So you are going to use this depending on the size of your IC. In fact, there are some big ICs whereby you don't need to even use any of this. All you need to do is to use this. And the hot air workstation also has a soldering iron. Everyone knows soldering iron. Even though we're going to talk about soldering iron in the next which is this soldering iron, the next topic. So they say rework station, hot air workstation, rework station. It has control to regulate or manage temperature and flow of hot air. So mostly, if you go to where they repair computers or repair phones, you see them with this kind of device. So it's very, very important that if you want to start repairing computer, you need to have this. So the next thing is the soldering iron. So I don't think if I need to explain much about the soldering iron, even though you need soldering iron because you need to use soldering iron to solder some of the components on the motherboard. So it has also some of these things that you can remove this one and put any of this depending on the kind of work that we are going to that you are going to use it for. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the soldering lead. This is a soldering lead. We all know this. Whenever you go to the place that they are repairing computer or maybe repairing radio, TV, and so on, or even phones, you are going to see this. You are going to need this as a computer engineer because it's very, very important. So we have a soldering paste. So this soldering paste it works as a soldering lead. So this one is just a liquid form of this soldering lead. So even though it's not common, you hardly see it in some places. Even right now I don't have it, but I'm going to order it very soon. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is soldering flux. So this soldering flux is just like Vaseline, just another Vaseline that one can be able to use and rub it on your body. So this flux helps you to remove a component easily. You can remove a component without this, but at times it will burn your motherboard or maybe burn your component. But with the help of this LED pest flux, you can be able to remove your component very easily. So we are going to do a video on how to make use of this also. So the next thing is the solder wick. So this one also we are going to do a special video on how to make use of this. And then we have a jumper wire. So we're going to also do a video on how to use a solder wire. This solder wire helps you to jump a wire from one component to another in order to transfer a data or maybe an electric signal. So the next thing is the DC power supply, which honestly, to be speaking, nowadays, if you're a computer repairer, as in a computer engineer or maybe a phone engineer, you really need these components. This DC power supply is very, very yeah, important for an engineer. So, if you have these components, it will help you to easily fix a computer problem. At the same time, it will help you easily to, in fact, you can even use this to boost a battery, a phone battery, or even a computer battery, and so on. So we are going to do a special video on how to make use of this also. Then the next thing that an engineer is supposed to have is a multimeter, a digital multimeter, which will help you to measure some components, electric components, or let's say a component on your motherboard. So as time goes on, and further videos that we're going to do, you see how to make use of this multimeter, digital multimeter. So the next thing is a magnifying glass. So these are two different magnifying glass. So for example, there are some components which are very small that you cannot be able to see them with your eyes. So if your eyes cannot be able to see those minor components, or maybe let's say you want to see a number of an IC and it's very tiny, or maybe you want to read a, a, a pin on a specific IC, so which your eyes cannot be able to see them, you are going to make use of this magnifying glass to see them. These are two different ones. This one you don't need to hold it, but this one you will use your hand to hold it. Then the next thing is the case openers. So these case openers will help you open your computer casing easily, especially laptop. So most of the times, most engineers use screwdrivers in order to open a computer casing, which is very bad. The reason why I say it's very bad is that if you open a computer casing using a screwdriver, you might end up having a scratch, or maybe even pinching or even destroying some part of the casing. But if you use this rubber type, it's very easily for you to open the computer casing without making any scratch. So the next thing is a screwdriver, which is very essential. As a computer engineer, you must, or maybe a phone repair engineer, you must have different kinds of screwdriver. So the next thing is a nose cutter, or some people call it nose plier. So this plier is very, very important. As a computer engineer, it's very important for you to have it. The next thing is a soft brush. These brushes are used to clean up some dust, or maybe to clean up a computer motherboard component, or the entire motherboard computer. So right now, most engineers use an ordinary toothpaste brush, the one that we use to brush our teeth, just like this design. Even me, right now, I don't use. In fact, I use something like this, and even this very one. I think I use this one and this one also. I also have this one. So it's not all that you must have, but at least you should have some of them to clean some components. So the next thing is a wrist strap, which I explained in the first video that we did, which I don't need to explain more. So the next thing is anti-static desk mat. This one too, I explained it in the first video. And the next one is the tweezers. This tweezer is very important. This tweezer will help you to pick up or to remove um, an IC. For example, you use the hot air gun or your hot air workstation to remove an IC. You cannot just use your hand to remove the IC. So what you are going to use is this very tool. You are going to use these two parts in order to pick up the components that you just removed. So the next thing is USB digital Microsoft. I have this one also, even though I'm going to buy the big one very soon, maybe microscope, inshallah. So the next thing, this one will help you to zoom in to see to see a component that your eyes cannot show you. So the next thing is microscope. So if you don't have, or let's say if you don't want to make use of this, which this one cannot give you much better resolution, so you might end up maybe buying a microscope, which is Very, very important. So imagine, look at this place. Let me show you this. Look at this. This is a mobile phone motherboard. So imagine these tiny components like these capacitors and so on. This is an IC, and look at other components here, whereby this very microscope was able to zoom in for you to see this component and work on them and test it and see which one is bad so that you can repair it. So this is very, very important. And the next thing is oscilloscope. This one will help you. It's a great tool for debugging and better understand what is going on with your circuit. Unlike digital multimeter, only shows you the voltage to a specific moment. At a specific moment, with an oscilloscope, you can see what's happening with the voltage over time. So, oscilloscope will help you to tell you whether a data is being transferred between components, if it's being transferred very well or not. And then a signal, an electric signal, whether if a signal is passing very well, or maybe if it's shaking, or if it's having some issues. So oscilloscope will help you to see that, so that you can be able to fix your computer motherboard or maybe a phone motherboard. So the next thing is a BIOS programmer, which is, at least if you are a a computer engineer, you need to have this component. This BIOS programmer is very important for you to have it, because you might need to program some computer BIOS, which we are going to have a specific video on this BIOS programmer. So the last but not the least component that we're going to talk about is a thermal paste. So thermal paste, also known as thermal grease or thermal compound, is a substance applied between the processor and the heatsink. The role of thermal paste is to help transfer heat away from the CPU and into the heatsink. The heatsink then expels the heat away from the hardware. So I saw that some engineers doesn't use this. Some engineers, I found out that some engineers were using a toothpaste, even though I don't think if it's going to work better than this thermal paste. So this thermal paste is placed on the processor or on the heatsink for it to help the processor and the heat sink to get a very good contact, in order to do away with the heat being generated by the processor. So I think that's the end of this video. Please kindly help us like this video, share, and then comment.